There's one thing almost everyone has promised themselves at least once. This time, I definitely won't give up. And in that moment, you truly believe it. You make plans, imagine a new life, and think that everything will be different now. But a few days go by, sometimes just a week, and it all ends the same way as before. The book remains unfinished, you stop working out. The idea turns into yet another someday. Most people think they simply lack discipline, or willpower, or motivation. But what if that's not the problem at all? What if your brain has been working against you from the very beginning? It's happy to let you get started, but it does everything it can to keep you from seeing it through to the end. And the strangest thing is, we almost never notice it. Today, we'll break down 7 psychological traps that cause most people to give up time and time again on the things that really matter to them. And the last reason explains why the previous 6 are so powerful. Reason number 1, you fall in love with the beginning, not the process. Every new start feels like a new life. It seems as though everything will work out this time, but the pleasure comes too soon. You haven't changed anything yet, but your brain is already getting a reward. That's exactly why sometimes buying a book is more enjoyable than reading it. Writing down a goal is more enjoyable than working toward it. After a few days, the feeling of novelty fades. What's left is routine work, repetitive actions, slow progress. This is exactly where most people draw the wrong conclusion. They think they've lost their motivation. But in reality, it's not the motivation that's run out, it's the sense of novelty that's gone. The brain loves to start things, but it doesn't like doing the same thing for a long time. That's why many people become true masters of new beginnings, and almost never masters of finishing what they start. Reason number 2, you constantly put your trust in your future self. Our brain loves one very comforting thought. Tomorrow will be easier. Tomorrow you'll have more energy, more time, more motivation, but tomorrow comes, and it turns out you're still the same person, with the same habits, with the same distractions, with the same urge to put it off just a little longer. Each time it seems like no big deal. Not today. I'll start tonight. Better to wait until Monday. But there's one problem. Every time you put off getting started, you're reinforcing the habit of procrastination. And over time, it gets harder. Not because the task has grown, but because the habit of not starting has grown. The most dangerous part is that this process is almost imperceptible. It seems like you've just pushed the task back by one day. But that's exactly how months slip away unnoticed, and sometimes even years. Reason number 3. You're waiting for the desire to strike instead of building a habit. Most people are convinced that motivation has to come first, and only then action. But almost always the opposite is true. First comes action, then comes the desire to continue. We rarely feel like going to a workout before we've actually started exercising. We rarely feel like working before we've started a project. We rarely feel like reading before we've turned the first page. Our brain loves to convince us that today just isn't the right day. But the problem is that tomorrow it'll say the same thing. If you wait for the right mood every time, it starts to control your whole life. And then a dangerous habit sets in, doing only what you feel like doing. Meanwhile, everything that truly changes your life gets constantly put off. Successful people have the same days when they don't feel like doing anything. The only difference is that they've stopped letting their mood be the boss. Reason number 4, you want to see big results too quickly. Our brains don't notice small progress very well. After a few workouts, your body hasn't changed much. After a week of studying a language, you still aren't speaking fluently. After a few days of work, the project still seems just as far away. And your brain concludes, maybe this isn't working. But the problem isn't the result. The problem is your expectations. We're used to things that give us instant gratification. Press a button, get an answer. Open an app, get entertainment. Real change works differently. For a long time, it remains almost imperceptible. But that's exactly why most people give up too soon. They walk away just a few steps short of the moment when progress finally becomes noticeable. The most ironic thing is that if they had kept going just a little longer, the result would have been impossible to ignore. Reason number 5. You see every setback as proof. Imagine someone who skipped a single workout. What happens next? Most people don't think about the workout. They start thinking about themselves. I guess I'm not disciplined enough. Here we go again. I never change. A single mistake suddenly becomes a definition of their character. This is exactly where most failures begin. Not when a person makes a mistake, But when they decide that the mistake says something about who they are, but the truth is much simpler. One missed day doesn't decide anything. One bad choice doesn't create a habit, just as one good day doesn't change a life. Only what repeats itself makes a difference. That's why people who ultimately make it to the end aren't distinguished by the fact that they never make mistakes. They're distinguished by the fact that they don't let one mistake lead to the next. Reason number 6, you're constantly starting over. It seems like a fresh start can fix everything. A new plan, a new system, a new app, a new Monday. We convince ourselves that the problem was our approach. But more often than not, the problem isn't the approach at all. It's that we never stick with it long enough. Every time you start over, you lose all the progress you've made. You become a beginner again. You look for inspiration all over again. You go through those tough first few days all over again, and you never get to the point where it gets easier. Our brains love fresh starts because they give us a sense of control. But real change doesn't happen when you start. It happens when you're already tempted to give up, but you keep going. Sometimes the best strategy isn't to look for a new system, it's to give the old one a chance to work. Reason number 7. You think it will get easier someday. This is the most subtle trap, and the most dangerous one. We constantly tell ourselves, once this month is over, once I have more free time, once the stress goes away, and then everything will change. But life almost never gets easier on its own. One problem is replaced by another. One task is followed by the next. One deadline is followed by a new one. If you don't learn to act under imperfect conditions, you'll be waiting your whole life. Because the perfect moment never comes, it exists only in our imagination. And one day, a person realizes something very unpleasant. All these years, they've been waiting for life to begin, even though it was already happening. All 7 reasons seem different, but in reality, they share one common trait. They make us believe that the problem lies somewhere outside ourselves, in our motivation, in time, in circumstances, or in the right moment. But almost always, the real problem is much closer at hand. Our brain simply chooses whatever seems easier right now. And if you don't notice this, you can keep starting things over and over again. But that way, you'll never actually finish anything. The most interesting thing is that successful people rarely possess any special willpower. They get tired, too. They have doubts, too. They want to give up, too. The difference lies in just one thing. They've stopped seeing the urge to give up as a signal to stop. They realize that this is a normal part of any journey. And it's precisely after this moment that real progress begins. So the main question isn't how many projects you've already given up on. The main question is what you'll do the next time you feel like giving up again. Because it's precisely at that moment that more than just the fate of a single project is decided. At that moment, the person you'll become in a few years is gradually taking shape. And perhaps the only thing standing between you and success isn't talent. It isn't motivation. It isn't even discipline. It's the decision to keep going for one more day, and another, and another. Because most people don't fail when they make mistakes, they fail when they decide it's not worth trying anymore. That's exactly why people who eventually succeed almost always share one quality. They simply stayed in the game longer than everyone else. Thanks for watching. Good luck.